quickly, talking about the Weber State game, was pleased with our team's effort. We clearly have a lot of work to do in a number of areas. I believe the old adage that teams make their most progress between games 1 and 2, and hopefully that'll be the case for us, because we do have a lot of work to do. We know we have an extreme challenge in facing the University of Oregon this week. They're an excellent football team. They've got arguably one of the best coaching staffs in the country in Coach Kelly and his staff. They present tremendous issues offensively with their speed, with their tempo, with their athletes, and with their schemes. Defensively, Coach Eliotti's been there, I believe, 20 years now, and Nick does a great job. They've got great talent, and present a big-time challenge for our offense as well. Having said that, I think our guys relish opportunities like this, and we're looking forward to the challenge. So, at this point, any questions?
Coach, the suspended players, the ones that were in the starting lineup heading into last week, are they back in the starting lineup this week, or do they got to earn their spot in practice?
Well, I mean, everybody earns their spots every week. We had 3 players that were suspended for 1 game. They served their suspension, and they have a clean slate now.
What's the status with Rashad Evans? Do you expect him to?
It's my expectation he'll play.
How about Josh Harper?
He will practice today. It's my expectation he'll play, but we'll have to see through practice.
How impressed were you with the guys who stepped in for them? A lot of guys playing their first time out.
Really impressed. You look at a guy like Greg Watson during camp. We had mentioned this, that we were looking at him to get on the field in different ways. We just didn't realize it was going to happen this quickly. But he stepped up and played a lot more snaps at receiver than we had anticipated. He answered the call. Anthony Riggins, had to play a lot of reps. I think Devontae did some good things. He's got to get much more consistent. But we had some guys that hadn't done things in the past have to step up. IB had done some things in the past. I thought he had an excellent game.
You even let him throw the ball early. He showed the reverse pass. I'm sure there's a few more wrinkles he saved for this week, though.
Yeah, believe it or not, we didn't have the whole playbook out there last week. Coach Schramm does a great job. And that's what camp's for, is you work on different schemes, different scenarios, and then each week you've built a big menu during camp, and then you figure out which pages you want to take off the menu each week and try to dress it up. So they'll have a great plan, and we'll hope it's successful come Saturday.
You mentioned Oregon's tempo. Are you pleased with your tempo offensively?
No. We're going to address it this afternoon with our team. It probably looked fast compared to maybe what they were used to in the past, but I believe we only ran 65 plays. We've got to push that much closer to 85, and part of that was due to the fact that we ran the ball 40-something times, 39 times. And when you do that, the clock's obviously running as opposed to throwing the ball a little bit more. I think we only threw 26 passes. So that's a little bit of the factor, but we've got to get the plays in quicker. We've got to get lined up quicker and put more pressure on defenses.
Coach, 2 questions. First, what went right, in your opinion, on Saturday?
We won. I think we started the game well. I think both sides of the ball at the start of the game played with the kind of intensity we wanted to play at. But like a lot of times in first games, there's some first game jitters for guys that have never played. There's new schemes on both sides, so we had some technical errors on getting some guys lined up properly. When you're in the classroom teaching it, and guys can take a test on paper, and you can go through a walkthrough, and they know what's going on, but they walk through the red wave on the way to the game, the lights are on. The game gets a lot bigger and faster to young guys when that happens, and sometimes they kind of lose their mind. So it was good that we got through that, and hopefully we can grow on that. And that's why teams typically make big time improvements between game and one and two. So those are probably the things we did right. And then the other major major thing that we did right was we had 100% ball security, and that's the, you look around our room, I mean, that's what we talk about here. And then on defense, I was disappointed we didn't get more than one takeaway. We did win the turnover battle by getting that takeaway, and I think it was a critical one, and our offense capitalized on it. And so to see that finish in the fourth quarter was good to see.
And then obviously the other side of the coin, I don't know, you answered it a little bit just now, but what in your opinion went wrong?
I mean, a lot of technical things went wrong that we've got to get cleaned up. We're not going fast enough on offense. We're, not disciplined right now enough that we're not having false starts. We had 2 of those, and that's unacceptable. A couple of the penalties were of an aggressive nature, and some of them were dumb on defense. And so we want to play right up to that edge. But when we take dumb penalties, the personal foul was a dumb penalty. And we're going to get that corrected this afternoon. The penalties that hurt you, we have to have an accountability for them. We'll have an accountability session for our guys this afternoon because of those. So those are things, probably the biggest things that went wrong. And, as I look at the third quarter, we moved the ball fairly well. That first drive we went 3 and out, but then after that we moved the ball, and then we get into close to the red zone, and we'd end up taking a penalty. It kind of knocked us out of sync and took scoring opportunities away from us. And so we've got to get those things cleaned up.
Did not having Evans, not having Harper, did that at all alter or limit the things that you guys wanted to do with the passing game?
Not particularly. We've been moving Josh from a couple different positions, and so you have backups that play, and so it probably brings some more guys into the fold. It was probably more of an adjustment for other guys having to fit in, but we're going to run our offense. Josh is healthy. He's one of our better players and a playmaker, and so we'll have some plays specifically designed to, depending on coverage, hopefully get him the ball. But instead of having Josh out there, Devontae was the guy in this particular game for what they're giving us.
Coach, do you have any specific game plan for containing Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota?
I do, but I'm not going to disclose it here. He's a good football player. He's an excellent football player for a guy that just started 1 game. He's extremely athletic. He can throw it, very accurate. And with their scheme, with their tempo, they're going to put a lot of stress on you. But I can't tell you exactly right now what we're going to do.
Have you seen a team that runs up-tempo and offensively as effectively as they do?
Different style, but you look at what Oklahoma State, the Big 12, and Texas Tech, and and Baylor. And again, I reference a lot of the Big 12 teams that gone against the last couple of years. West Virginia now, they're all different style, a little bit more throw-oriented, where Oregon's a little bit more option-oriented. I can tell you this, I don't think anybody is better than them. Those guys approach that. Their tempo is extremely fast, and you match that up with some extremely fast athletes. They put a lot of stress on you, and they give themselves opportunities for explosive plays, and it's a very effective tactic for them.
Having been in this position, then that Nick Toth will be in as a coordinator, is there more stress on how
He won't
quickly
sleep
you make
this week.
decisions?
Yeah, because he's got to make the defensive calls quicker. We've got to have a system in place to quickly and effectively call our defenses so that our guys aren't panicked. We've got to match their call for call. They're calling it quick. We got to get lined up and get the defense called quick. And the good thing about having our offense is this week in practice we'll have periods of time that we'll go against each other, and we'll try to challenge our offense go as fast as they possibly can go, so that they get used to that, and then our defense can practice real life tempo against it. That's one of the more difficult things that you have as a defensive coordinator if you don't have an up-tempo offense, just to get used to that. But the fact that we do go up-tempo on offense, I think it's not going to be the answer to solve the mystery. I mean, they've been scoring a lot of points on a lot of people, but at least give us a chance to, during the week of practice, be able to come close to simulating it.
You used the word explosive a minute ago. Have you seen anyone more explosive than Anthony Thomas?
Not in a long time. Reggie Bush probably, back a few years ago, kind of reminds me of that, just that the guy that can take over a game by, just making those explosive burst type plays. He's a tremendous football player. We, have to be aware of where he's at all times and try to get multiple guys to him.
You were talking about you're not exactly happy with the tempo on offense. Now, is it safe to say that a lot of that it has to do with the offensive line? Are they still kind of work in progress as far as getting up the ball, running the ball? That's still a new thing for them? Or?
No, to be honest with you, I thought our offensive line did a pretty good job of it. I think it was more to do with our receivers getting lined up, to be frank. I was pleased with most of how our offensive line played. I mean, we're still a work in progress there. They're not settled by any stretch, but I believe we gave up 1 sack the other day, and if you talk to Derek, he'll probably tell you it was on him. We had called a protection for a quick throw, and he held on to the ball. They weren't, like I said, they weren't far from perfect, but they did some good things.
Your first possession, your own 3-yard line, throw the ball. Is there some symbolic value in that statement that was made by that play selection?
I don't know that it's symbolic as much as we're going to be aggressive. I want our team to feel like it anywhere on the field. We're going to make people not just defend the run; they're going to have to defend everything. So during the week, we had talked about the opening play was actually going to be a different play, but you have to be cognizant of where you're at on the field. Obviously, not to sell out Coach DeBerry, but when I was playing, I remember my senior year, we're playing Army, and we had practiced all week that we were going to run a screen pass on first down, opening ball game, or opening play of the ball game. And unfortunately, our kick returner, they kicked it toward the corner, caught it, and ran out of bounds at the 1.5-yard line. They went to the script and called it, and we started this game off with a safety because they threw a screen pass in the end zone. But we had a play that probably could have, with the risk of lost some yardage from that field position, so we ended up running it later. And Coach Ram had an excellent call. And, it obviously was effective, and like I said, it makes people defend everything.
Coach, what do you tell your guys this week to prepare them for playing in an atmosphere as crazy as Autzen Stadium? What do you try to start ingraining into them today?
Well, today's going to be a little bit more of a teaching introduction to Oregon's offense and defense. As we go later in the week, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, our offense is going to practice with our speakers blasting at them, so that they're going to have to communicate where it's going to be very, very difficult. It's probably going to be most difficult on our offense typically, and I haven't been to Autzen, but typically fans realize they don't want to be yelling when their offense is on the field, so it's not as much of a factor for our defense. But it definitely affects you, when you're trying to communicate from quarterback to center and along the lines, or just even coaches on the sideline. I've heard it's as loud as anywhere, and I've been in loud places that it's hard to hear. So I'm sure that'll be a big part of the challenge, and we'll try to address it through how we practice this week.
And that's got to be even more difficult, the fact that you want to go no huddle and try to communicate with all that noise.
I don't think so. We signal things. We'll have to make adjustments when we use signals, hand signals, so we'll go silent count. I mean, it's something you do. It's just normal course. And while it'd be difficult, absolutely, but the fact that we're no huddle, I don't think makes a difference, to be honest with you. I think if you're in the huddle trying to yell at each other, it probably maybe a little bit more difficult than signaling something from the sideline where everybody sees it, can get it, as opposed to what he's saying.
What stands out to you about the Oregon defense?
They're big, they're physical, they can run. They schematically do some things where they bounce from odd fronts to even fronts. They've got a veteran group that plays really well together. They really chase the ball. They're going to be a challenge for our offense.
Gus Small's on there the other day at their walkthrough, had to tell some of his players to stop taking pictures and gawking at the, how huge everything is there and the grandeur of it. Any strategies for you to keep your guys focused on what's actually happening Saturday?
No, we're not gonna go to the stadium on Friday. I mean, we'll practice here, we'll show up. One of the advantages, I think, of, being a school where we take on anybody, anytime, anywhere, is that I don't think our guys get hung up on that. They've been to, Lincoln, they've been to, Cal Stadium, they've been to, Kyle Field, in the past. The young guys will probably have a little bit of an awe-inspired look in their eye, but, I don't worry about that. I'll reassure them before the game that it's 120 yards long with 10 yards in each end zone and 53 and a third across, just like the one we practiced on. So it shouldn't be that big a deal. I'm more concerned about their players, not the fans.
What's your non-conference scheduling philosophy?
My non-conference scheduling philosophy would be to play teams like Oregon. I want to play teams typically in the Western region. I'd love to play Pac-12 schools and Big 12 schools. But you also, I think, have to play some, for at least the next year and a half, terminology-wise, non-BCS schools. I think it's an advantage in recruiting when you recruit kids that feel like they can play in those leagues and maybe don't get an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to get an opportunity to play against them, buckle up. We're going to play against the best. And at the same time, you've got to be smart scheduling-wise, that you don't want to play the top 10 teams non-conference either, because obviously your odds of winning those games, nobody does that. So to play one or two of those teams and then open up with a team like we did from the FCS, and then maybe play another team, be it, well, from as long as the WAC is going to be here, them, the Sun Belt, the MAC, Conference USA. I like our schedule the way it is this year, where we're playing 2 Pac-12 schools, Conference USA school, and an FCS school. I like that kind of a schedule.
Coach, is it?
I was just gonna say, are you okay with like the one and done type of contracts, where you play them on the road once and they don't come back, or do
No,
you
I
want them to come back, or what's kind of the?
I guess not as a blanket statement that, because you have to consider every single case. But, I think it's more fair to our fans to play a team like Colorado who, play here and then we'll go there. We play Nebraska, they're coming here. Rutgers, they're coming here. That would be my preference. But again, not everybody does that. And you've got to look at every case on an individual basis. If we've got an opportunity to play a particular school that is advantageous to us to play one time, I think you got to consider that.
And are you okay with like traveling beyond the Mississippi River there, going into the Eastern time zone, or?
It just depends, absolutely. But I think anytime you do that, I'm not so worried about that week's game. It's, are you playing a night game in the Eastern time zone, and then you're getting back in at 4 in the morning, and then, how are your guys recovering for that next game? Those are, the concerns about doing that. But again, if you're playing someone in the afternoon and it can be a game that's going to help our program and raise our profile, we'll consider it.
Coach, is there any jitters for you yourself personally for next week's game against Oregon?
I got them all out yesterday or Saturday, so this will be my second game.
Anything else for Coach?
Yeah, Coach, are you surprised at all that Oregon's offense hasn't been kind of duplicated or mimicked by others throughout, that option-oriented spread system?
There's a few people that are doing it. I mean, I haven't seen Arizona play this year, but Coach Rodriguez running an option-based spread up tempo. He kind of started it, but and I don't want to disparage Coach Kelly. I don't know when exactly they started it, because when he was in New Hampshire, they were doing it as well. They may not be the work tempo that these guys are. I mean, these guys really press the edge of the envelope. But I think more and more people, like I said, the Big 12 is taking that tempo philosophy, but their slant on it is more of a throw spread as opposed to an option spread. Air Force is going to be similar. Coach Kelly came out and visited the Air Force Academy when I was back there coaching, to talk to Coach Calhoun about option football and some of their schemes. And they, do some things that are similar. Trying to think who else out does option-based spread, but it's not the only teams. And while the schemes are good, I mean, ultimately it comes down to players, and they've done an excellent job, not just with their schemes, but recruiting-wise. They got some tremendous players.
One last question.
Coach, will you watch any video from last year's Oregon USC game for how a team goes into Autzen and comes out with a win, or is that last year's game and this year's just a whole new slate?
If they would let me have USC's players, yeah, absolutely, but I don't think that's going to happen. So during our summer review of our first 4 opponents, we looked at that game. We noticed that USC has some very good players on both sides of the ball. And at the same time, they still scored 30-something on them, I think. Schematically, they're a little bit different. They're going to be a pro style. Defensively, Coach Kiffin does a great job, and they're a four-man front based. It's just a different style.
All right, let's let Coach go and bring up some of the players now.